What's up, y'all? It's Becky Allen here. Welcome back to From the Ground Up. Today, we are going to dig into something that is truly at the core of everything I do. It's at the core of everything that makes Genesis. It's what really makes us different. We are going to talk about the why versus the how versus the what, and why understanding the differences between those three things are absolutely critical to, honestly, your success, both in business or as a leader or as a clinician. Being able to differentiate and be clear on those three things and what they look like and mean to you is going to change the game for you and for your teams. I truly believe that great leaders start with why, and the what and the how follow. I, of course, have read the Simon Sinek book, Start With Why. So first of all, if you haven't read that one, start with why. Start with why. That's kind of funny. But I have read that book, and it was a big catalyst for helping me truly see this concept and be able to kind of put it into play and kind of put words to what I was feeling about my practice, my team, leading my team, all of that stuff. So definitely highly recommend that book from Simon Sinek, Start With Why. Truly, though, great leaders start and they lead with their why. And I really believe that that's the only way to build a practice, to build a culture, and truly a career that feels aligned to you. And honestly, this is what's going to help you stay in the game, even on the hard days, is when you know your why and you are filtering everything through it and leading from that, leading from a place of alignment and why you do what you do, right? And so whether you're a seasoned business owner, maybe you've been in this game for 30 years now, or maybe you're a clinician who is just kind of considering branching out on your own, starting your own thing, or maybe you're already in a leadership role within the company that you work. In all three of those scenarios, starting with your why is going to be the secret to your alignment and your success, and honestly, in you finding joy and fulfillment in the day-to-day, even in the suck. Like literally, even when it sucks and it's hard and you're just like, oh my gosh, I am dying, you have your why to help you take that next step forward. Last week, I was asked to come speak to a group of OT students. So these are graduate students. They were second years in OT school at Texas Women's University in Denton, here in Texas. And I was asked to come speak to their organizational leadership in occupational therapy class. And what I learned about this class before I went to speak was this was a class, first of all, that we did not get in PT school back in my day. Okay, where is our leadership class? Where is our entrepreneur class? We didn't have this, okay? So that was already exciting because in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, if OTs are getting this in their doctoral programs now, maybe PTs are starting to do this too. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I got excited though that they have this leadership class. In this class, this group of OTs, their kind of big project for the year was to create a business plan. And part of that business plan for them, which their professor shared with me, part of that business plan was talking about why they were starting this business in the first place. And this is a fictional business. This is like, she was joking with me because apparently they were all panicking about, well, where am I going to get financing? And how do I learn the numbers? And she was like, just say you got $1 million loan. Like, it doesn't really matter. This is just a fake project. But anyway, I thought that was funny. But a part of this business plan that she wanted to see was them talk about why they built the business plan in the way that they did. What is it that they're actually trying to accomplish? And so when I was asked to come speak, I was like, in my head, I'm like, I don't want to come talk about some boring business concept. Like, I don't want to teach them I don't even know. There's so many boring business concepts, but I didn't even want to teach a certain strategy, like a marketing strategy, right? And that can be fun, that can be exciting, but I kind of dug deeper, and I was kind of journaling before I decided what I was going to go talk about, how I wanted them to feel during and after my talk. And what I kept coming back to was I want them to feel empowered to be a game changer. And I'm not saying they all have to join the field of pelvic health, but you know what? If they all do, that's even better for our field because they are going to be game changers. But I want them in whatever they go into after they graduate next year. I want them to have this mentality of, I'm going to do things differently and I'm going to do it better. And so that's kind of how I wanted them to feel and what I wanted them to take away from whatever it was that I was going to come talk about. And so after journaling through that and deciding that that's like the impact, the feeling that I want them to have, I realized, well, I have to talk to them about how you get there. Who is it that is so passionate about changing the game, and why are they so passionate? It's because they have this huge, massive purpose, this belief, if you will, that this wild, crazy big dream that they just know they can accomplish, even though it's crazy and wild. But they have this purpose, this why that drives them. And so that's kind of when I decided that, you know what, like I'm going to go to this leadership class for OTs, and I'm going to inspire them to become game changers of themselves, of whatever type of OT they end up going into. And in order for them to leave hyped up and wanting to do that, I have to teach them that it starts with your why. It starts with your purpose. And so I wanted to break down kind of what I reviewed and what I went over with them and what I shared with them about my story and everything and my own why, in hopes that it will also inspire you to keep going, to keep doing things differently and doing them better and change the game. This is a movement, y'all. It takes all of us. It takes all of us to change the game. So I wanted to break down kind of when in my own story I learned what my quote unquote why was. And I didn't always know I wanted to be a pelvic floor PT. In fact, I thought that was crazy. I was like, that's so weird. Who does that? Honestly, that was my honest thought. Part of that was the fault of my PT school class. We had one class in PT school that was over niche practices in physical therapy. And within that class, each kind of lecture would break down a couple niche practices. So there was one day we had the pelvic health day or whatever, and it's not even the whole 2-hour lecture. It's like they talk about 2 niche practices in the 2-hour lecture. So pelvic health got 1 hour out of entire PT school. And so I remember the professor at the time was like, yeah, there's these crazy PTs who learn all about the pelvic floor, which is this like ominous group of muscles that live inside the pelvis, blah, blah, blah. And I remember her showing us like a picture, not like a real picture, but like a diagram is a better word to say it, a drawing of palpating inside the rectum. And she kind of making a joke of, look, they go in the rectum and they adjust like the coccyx and they work on the muscles back there. And it kind of created in all of us this like, oh my gosh, what? So anyway, that was my first impression of pelvic health. And I remember thinking, I would never. Like what? Literally who does that was my thought. So I tell you that story to remind you that this was not always my why. I didn't know I wanted to be a pelvic health physical therapist at all. I thought I was going to do ortho, sports, weekend warrior people. Okay. So fast forward, I graduate PT school. I get my job at a lovely outpatient orthopedic clinic, which is where I did a lot of my tech hours. I was a technician there throughout undergrad. I did my final PT school internship there for 12 weeks. And I knew this is where I wanted to start my career of physical therapy. And so I started there, got hired. It was the same team that I knew and I loved. I'd already worked there on and off as an intern and a tech for, how many years would it have been? Probably 5 by then, because it was through PT school and then, a little bit of undergrad. So probably 5 years I had been a tech or an intern there. So I knew the place, It ran like a well-oiled machine. It was kind of your typical what you think of when you think of outpatient, like orthopedic practice, right? Insurance-based model. We had PTs, we had PTAs, we had techs. It was great. I loved the team. I loved the atmosphere. I loved the culture. But looking back, and I'm going to get into this in a little bit later in the episode of what this actually means. But looking back, I really was only there because I aligned with the what and the how. I didn't really have a strong why at the time, other than I want to work at a place I'm familiar with, so I feel like I can dive in and not be nervous on my first day of work, right? Like that was my why. And so it aligned with that place, right? And so I get out of PT school, start my job there. It's great, just like it always had been. I get pregnant, and 9 months later, have my first son and take my maternity leave. I'm off for 3 months and then come back. I come back after maternity leave. And I remember Friday, the end of my first week back, I got home, grabbed my 3-month-old, was trying to feed him and all the things. And I just was a wreck. And I was bawling my eyes out. I was crying. I was telling my husband, I cannot do this. I cannot go back to work. I need to be home with my baby. All of those emotions just came flooding. And granted, it was probably a mix of some like postpartum hormonal stuff. But also, I had developed in my maternity leave since becoming a mom this strong purpose in motherhood, right? And so that had become my purpose, my why, my filter for every single decision from there on out, work or otherwise, that I was going to make, right? And so that's truly what your why is it's this filter mechanism where you run every possible decision through it. And if it doesn't align, you say no. And so I called my boss and I was still bawling my eyes out. And luckily, I'd known him, like I said, for 5, 6 years now. And I was just like, I'm so sorry. Like, I can't come back. It's not you guys, it's me. And I just felt like I was like breaking up with him, which I guess technically you are. But I was like, I need to be home with my son. Like, I need to be a mom right now. And I cannot be working right now. And so I told him that, and he was so sweet and kind and gracious. And he was like, I so get it, like my wife did the same thing. She stayed home with the kids when they were really little. So I so understand. He even went so far to say, like, your job will always be here. You're a part of this team, and so of course that like had me bawling. And we're like, oh my gosh. So what that experience taught me was the strength of knowing your why and knowing your purpose. At that time, my purpose was being a mom. And because I didn't feel like going back to work at that time was aligned, I had to say no and say yes to my why. And so that's the true power of having a why is it becomes your filter to be able to say yes and no and ensure that every action you take is aligned to kind of your soul, if you will, and your calling, right? And so fast forward, another year goes by, I get pregnant, have another baby. And in the meantime, I had kind of been, as my first child got a little bit older, I'd kind of dabbled with some PRN work, at a nursing home, at a rehab hospital, nothing more than like 1 to 2 days a week, if that, just enough to get me out of the house and with other adults and doing something I love, which is physical therapy. I love, love, love my time with the old people in the nursing home and even the people at the rehab that they're just like, I just want to get home. Like, I just had this big surgery or this, this stroke, whatever it is. And like, I just want to get back home to my wife, my son, whatever. And so I really did enjoy my time in there. But again, I was only there for the what's and the hows. I wasn't aligned, like, it aligned with my why at the time of motherhood because it let me stay home for the most part and then get out sometimes for adult interaction. So that was still aligned with my why, but I wasn't necessarily aligned with the company's why, right? And so it's okay because as long as you're aligned with your own why, but when the true magic happens is when your why aligns with the company's why, and special props to if it's your own company, right? Which that's kind of what I'm leading the story up to. What happened with me is, had my second child, and once I decided, okay, I'm done having more babies, like, I think she was a 6-month-old and I guess a 2-year-old at the time. I was like, I'm done having more babies. Like, it's time to start thinking about what I'm actually going to do for the long term. I'm not just going to keep doing little PRN work at the rehab hospital. And so once I decided I'm going to go for this thing, I'm going to start a practice. Even in that moment, I did that. I started a practice because of motherhood, because it was going to allow me to remain available for my kids to, at the time I thought work part-time, which we all know that blew up in just a few months' time. But, it was still aligned with my purpose of being a mom and my love for PT. Okay. And so as Genesis began to grow, and I started to realize, oh my gosh, like these women, they actually need help and I'm actually making a difference. And, I had started to be pulled towards a lot of my methodology that the foot is connected and the rib cage is impacting things. And, I was starting to dabble in all of that stuff early on. That's when I really began to adopt this idea that this matters to me. Like, yes, I'm a mom, and yes, everything I do, that's going to remain kind of what I've started to call my intrinsic why. But then what started to grow as Genesis grew over the first year or so was this extrinsic purpose, this extrinsic why. How I wanted to impact the world was my kind of extrinsic purpose, right? And that started to develop. And I realized I can make a difference here. Like I'm doing things differently and it looks like it's doing it better and I'm impacting these women's lives. And so through that is kind of when this idea of changing the game was born, if you will, the genesis of that idea, the genesis of Genesis. And I realized this is very aligned with my intrinsic why. I can still be a mom. I can still have flexibility. I own my own practice. I can make my own hours, all the things. And I can actually change the game of pelvic health. I can change the standard of how we treat pelvic floor dysfunction. And then, as Genesis grew, it also grew to and I can change how we operate our business, right? And I can change typical culture, team culture, work culture of, how the team is run, right? And so it just kind of grew and became stronger and stronger as Genesis grew that I was like, this is my purpose. This is my why for existing on this planet, right? This is the impact that I am called and that I want to make on this world. And bonus points because that is very aligned with, being a mom. I treat a lot of moms. I employ a lot of moms. And so it was this really nice kind of meshing or marriage of the two of my intrinsic why and now my extrinsic why. And that was really when this idea of change the game was born, was that's my purpose. Okay. And so looking back again, like in my first job before I kind of had my crash out and quit and needed to stay home, be a stay-at-home mom for a little bit longer, I really was pretty much just aligned to that company's what and their how. And I wasn't really aligned to any of their why, right? And that's why it didn't work out long term. And that's okay. I'm not crapping on their purpose. I'm just saying like at the time it didn't align with what mattered more to me, what my purpose was. So that's kind of where the idea of this purpose, this why was born and having this intrinsic and this extrinsic why and them being able to live in harmony with each other through, accomplishing that through building a team and building a practice. So then we get to, if we know our why and we know our purpose, then the how and the what will follow. And it shouldn't be the other way around. A lot of people do that. A lot of leaders do that. They start with what they're going to do, then they figure out how they're going to do it. And then maybe they end up getting to why. And so I'm calling for all of us to start with why and then know that the how and the what will follow. So how, simply put, is the everyday consistent actions that we take towards or aligned with our purpose, our why. Okay, so how is the decisions you make, it's the team you hire, okay, and it's the culture you create. It's basically, I think of our how as our company values. And that is because I believe that our company values need to be action oriented. Okay. And that way, when you're taking that aligned action, you're actually moving in alignment with your values. That's when you're truly like kind of building on purpose, right? And working towards your purpose and your why. And so a few examples of some of our values at Genesis, just to kind of give you something to like a framework to think this through is, one of our values is being better together. And we believe that we take action day in and day out to work together, to be a team. Like, I think of like a team in athletics, right? Like that's how I want my team operating is we pass the ball. We set them up for success. And so that's a part of Better Together. And I always make a joke and I'm like, there's no islands except the Caribbean islands, right? And it's like we don't silo ourselves off. We even though we have 5 clinics throughout DFW, like we do our best and we take action every day to make sure everyone feels like a part of the Genesis team, not just the team at this clinic, right? And so that's what Better Together can look like. And then another value of ours is we leave things better than we found them, right? And that's action oriented. That's stewardship. That is taking action to do things differently and do them better, whatever that looks like in your day to day. Like how can I get better at my documentation? How can I treat this patient better? How can I be a better teammate? It's the ultimate value is we leave things better than we found them. A third example is we are unapologetically aligned to the vision. So we take action day in and day out to work towards our big vision, right? So to make sure everyone on this planet has access to Genesis quality pelvic health care. That's the vision. And so we take aligned action. We say yes and we say no to things based on that vision, okay? And we are unapologetically aligned. We don't apologize for it because we believe in it and we believe that this is better for patients. We don't settle. We all show up and we change the game, okay? And so those are just some examples of our values and how they're action-oriented. And that's important to make your values action-oriented because it gives a roadmap for what actions to take and how to show up, right? How to show up and treat your patients, how to treat your team, how to be your best self when you show up to work for that day. So these are the how to your why, to your purpose. They create the consistency. They are how you have impact. They're how you build momentum. These are very important, y'all, but I want you to remember they're only truly meaningful if they're aligned to your why and if these actions you take are in alignment with your big purpose. And this is why even employees need a why, right? They need to be able to align their intrinsic why with the company's extrinsic why, with what you're doing together. And you do this with the company's how. You want them aligned to your purpose and to your values, right? So that way the actions they take are getting you one step closer and living on purpose, building on purpose to your why. And then we think about, okay, so if the why is your ultimate purpose, and if the how is the actions you take day after day after day that are aligned with your values, they are your values in your culture, right? It's action-oriented values, living them out. Then what is the what? What's the what? So the what is essentially your services. Right? It's what you do. We do pelvic health care. We offer manual therapy. We do exercises. We do dry needling. We do whatever. And so this is actually what most clinics lead with is their what. They say, we treat pelvic floor dysfunction. And that may be true, but let me ask you this. Which clinic are you going to go to? Are you going to go to the one that when you're reading about them on their website, they say, we treat pelvic floor dysfunction. We do manual therapy. We offer dry needling. We offer cupping. We offer therapeutic exercise interventions. We offer laser. We do this, and this. We give you a home exercise program. Or what about the clinic that you get on their website and you read, we exist because we're on a mission to change the game of pelvic floor therapy. And we want to ensure that every single human on this planet has access to our quality of care because we believe that you deserve something different. And we believe that you deserve better care than what you've gotten so far. Which one are you going to go with? You're going to go with the second one, okay? And so that's the power of leading with why and not with what. And that's the mistake so many people make is, let me just say what I do instead of let me tell you why I exist, why I'm on this planet in the first place, okay? Your whats should come last. Your whats are a result of your hows, okay? They're a result of the action you take. If my how is, we're unapologetically aligned to change the game, right? That means clinically speaking, we're showing up every day to be different and be better and to give our patients game-changing pelvic floor therapy, something that they haven't gotten elsewhere. And this is what's missing, right? And so the result of that action is better therapy. It's better manual skills, better exercise. That's the result, is the what's, okay? It's the result of your hows. It's the result of the actions you take. And it's frankly the least important of everything. I mean, obviously you have to have them or else you don't have deliverables of your business. But from a messaging and, an alignment perspective, that should be the least of our worries, okay? So what I want you to take away today is that I believe truly the best leaders start with why. The what's and the hows will follow. When you filter everything through your why, through your purpose first, you will attract your ideal clients. You will be able to build a team of people who are truly unapologetically aligned to your purpose. They're aligned to why you do what you do. And this team is going to take action day in and day out in order to make it happen. And that's truly the power of knowing your why and aligning everything to it and starting with that above all else. And it's what most people miss. And it's what separates the fine companies from the great companies. And I really believe that. I really believe that. So if you guys found this helpful, I would love, love, love if you would take a screenshot, share it to your stories, tag me at Dr. Becky Pelvic PT. I always love seeing that you're enjoying the show. I always love getting DMs from you guys and hearing what was impactful, what was helpful, what made you laugh, all of that fun stuff. I'm always in my DMs with you guys, and I appreciate every single outreach and message that I get. And truly, truly, because we are in this to do things different and better and to truly change the game of pelvic health, it takes all of us. And so that's why I always ask you guys to share the episodes because, if this is impacting you in a positive way, chances are it's going to impact someone else in a positive way. And so would love it. I would love to share. I would love to tag all the things. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and let's change the game.